Tuesday night, good to be with you tonight. I am Thabo Mdluli, and thank you very much for joining us. Government has declared a national state of disaster as it implements a recovery and reconstruction plan following devastating floods in KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape. Premier Sihle Zikalala joins me now to unpack how this development will aid the recovery and reconstruction in the province. Premier, good evening. Good to have you with us tonight on In Focus. Earlier on, we saw you on a walkabout meeting some of the disaster management teams who have been deployed from various parts of the country. How are you improving response capacity at this particular point, especially in districts like Ugu and Msunduzi?
Thank you. May I start by expressing our heartfelt condolences to all those who have passed on, to the families of the victims, and also to the family of Mjwaho, who lost one of their members, who was the member of the search and rescue team. I wish to also to appreciate the support from other provinces, such as Free State, Western Cape, Limpopo, and Northwest. Their support is greatly appreciated during this time. We are building capacity to ensure resilience in all of our districts. All districts have disaster management centers. We have a campaign that tries to ensure that people do not build houses along the rivers or the river banks, and do not build also around the wetlands. And those are areas that are often affected when there are floods. And the quality of the infrastructure has been very good. But we must note that this has been unprecedented. It's not like what we saw in 1987, where we had a rain which took place and was sustained for a particular period of about 4 to 7 days, raining with no stop. But in this case, it was a heavy rain at once. And that's what we believe has been the cause of this damage.
Yeah. Have we established a degree of certainty around the people who are still missing at this particular point? How's the system working in as far as tallying up those numbers?
We want to thank the search and rescue teams. They've done a wonderful job. Today they recovered 5 bodies. Painful as it is, we thank that. There are about close to 37 people who are reported missing. I must also indicate that some will be reported missing, but only to find that the person is around. And then that's why police have to verify before getting deeper into sending even teams. In this regard, we are led by the cases that are reported by communities and family members in particular. When a person is missing, they report to 10111 or to police stations. Then we collate information, dispense the search search and rescue teams. And then we are able to work with those communities. Right now, I can assure you that the teams have responded to almost all call-outs and have been able to work with those communities. We might have not recovered all people who are missing, either because others are missing, not because they were affected by floods, but they've gone around. Others are missing because they were affected by floods and they are underneath, deep under the soil, and it becomes difficult for sniffers to get that. The work is continuing, and we want to assure all people of KwaZulu-Natal that we are not going to leave without getting each and every person who's reported to be missing.
Is there something done, Premier, to bolster the response, right? You mentioned there in your address that there are currently 6 teams that you were shown. I saw on that screen there, particularly in the Durban area. But maybe in the outer parts of KwaZulu-Natal, there are some people who are still saying, we want maybe sniffer dogs here. Our loved ones are still missing, and we are not getting any assistance. What's a way of bolstering that kind of response, especially in the search and rescue missions?
Once the matter is reported, each case is reported to police. It then elevated same time to the joint operation or to the operational center where we were. That's where the state or the cases are coming, are reported to. Then once the case is reported, the second thing that is done is to verify whether that person got lost during the rainy period, or he might have just gone somewhere, to separate between people who are lost because they've gone somewhere and people who are really, really affected by floods. Then, once we verify that, then the teams goes there. All districts have been treated the same in that respect, even the rural areas and the townships. So we are working together in that regard, and I would want to confirm that the team that is in that operational center is so dedicated to reach all areas. They've been in Umzinyati, they've been also in the outskirts of eThekwini.
Yeah. 448 fatalities being reported now, and Premier, one of the experiences that I saw being recounted is an experience of someone who they've lost their homes, they've lost everything, but over and above that, they've got the difficulty of now having to bury a loved one. They don't even know where to begin. Is there an intervention at this particular point? Now it has become a national disaster. How are you intervening, particularly to assist those who would like to bury their loved ones? We are intervening.
All those who are burying their loved ones will be assisted. In eThekwini have a burial policy where they support destitute families. It cost about 15,000 or so. The second is a contribution by AFBOP. We want to thank AFBOP for this contribution. Out of these 448 people, AFBOP have agreed that they will bury about 150, and that's a cost of about 20,000. Then the remainder will be taken by the provincial government. We have adopted the policy that will ensure that Department of Culture and Social Development support the victims and the families through burial.
Yeah. There have been worrying reports and concerns, and maybe for some in the province as well, that the disaster response is somewhat being controlled at a nerve center that is politically aligned. And you can just speak to those allegations of a circular that has been sent around from regional to say there must be a regional leadership-led nerve center to coordinate government response to these floods.
I'm sure you will assure the viewers that in the press conference that I held in our own disaster as the provincial government, seated with me was the deputy mayor, who's not the ANC. And therefore, that tells you that there is no disaster center that is meant for a particular party. And there is no biasness. We are supporting all people equally. I would want to insist on that. And as government, we have supported all people equally. I must also commend other political parties who have reached out and engaged, especially at a provincial level. Leaders of the IFP have reached out to me where there are cases that they wanted to report, and we intervene on these cases. leaders of the Democratic Alliance have reached to me saying there must be there must be meetings to discuss this. I've responded, and we are tomorrow going to the legislature to discuss all of the issues that are presented. Discuss them publicly through the legislature platform, but also discuss in committee with party leaders. And therefore, we are open, we want transparency in this matter. I have engaged with the Human Rights Commission, and they represent also, they are coming with other Chapter 9 institutions, including Public Protector, the Auditor General. All of them will be ensuring that they monitor and ensure that there is no biasness or corruption in the process.
You've already mentioned the immediate humanitarian relief that you're providing in as far as making sure that people are brought into safety and their basic needs are being met. The other leg of this, the President announces the stabilization and recovery, which is the rehousing and restoring of homes of citizens, but also provision of services. Let's just talk about that housing program. Any clarity right now on how it's going to roll out? Because a lot of people, I'm sure you would know, they are quite anxious to rebuild their homes as opposed to being in some temporary arrangement.
Yes, the first is to identify affected communities. The second is to identify communities who survive, but they've been partially affected or they are in areas which are dangerous. Then relocate all of them. Ensure that when we start building houses, we build houses for all of those people. So the plan is in place as MEC Jomosbia and Minister Kubai presented in the press conference. Those plans are in place, and that's one area where we've done a thorough assessment of those affected and the interventions required, including the budget that must be spent. The budget will come from reprioritization, both provincially and nationally, but will also come from the disaster fund.
Premier, we appreciate your update this evening, and thank you very much for coming on. Premier of KwaZulu-Natal Sihle Zikalala there, updating us on the latest interventions being undertaken in the management of this disaster. Earlier